I am Jonathan Robbins.
And I'm Matthew Carvery. We're from Clutch the Series, and you're listening to GenreTainment.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of GenreTainment, right here on SciFiPulseRadio.com. We're your hosts, Marx
and Julie, and today we have a jam-packed episode with not one, but two interviews.
We speak with Leesa Dean, the creator of the animated series Chilltown TV. Dean tells us how she taught herself animation to create her hip-hop animated web series. After that, we are joined by producer Thomas Bannister and director Justin Lutsky, who tell us about how they brought their ambitious found footage-style action series Armed Response to life on the YouTube channel Hardcoded.
Now, before we start, we want to encourage you to check out our 2 episodes last week covering LA Webfest, which is just packed with interviews from the creators of shows like Clutch, The Bloody Mary Show, Super Knocked Up, Drifter, Broken Road, Pairings, The Ladies and the Gents, and more.
We do want to point out that the music you just heard at the beginning of the show was a snippet from the theme song for our web series, Reality on Demand, a song composed and performed by our friend T-Shawn Hardy. You can find our web series at realityondemandseries.com.
Now let's get started with our interview with Leesa Dean, the creator of Chilltown TV.
Hey, this is Layla, and welcome to Chilltown TV, the home of scathing hip-hop animated comedy. We got celebs.
Clay Aikens? That's right, but I'm also a wee genie, and your wish is my command.
We got crazy stories.
Blame the pimp, story of my life.
And we got the most insane advice show you've ever seen.
We're listening to GenreTainment, and this is Marx.
And Julie.
And today we're speaking with web series creator Leesa Dean, the creator of the animated series Chilltown. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, can you tell our audience a little bit about Chilltown?
Chilltown is an animated web series. It's hip-hop oriented. It's pretty wild. It focuses on the lives and misadventures of 3 guys who are hip-hop heads. They're kind of like misfits a little bit in a certain way. It kind of just focuses on like their day-to-day lives. Like one of them or 2 of them have crappy day jobs, girlfriend stuff. A lot of it is kind of surreal. Most of it takes place in and around the music business. There are a couple of extra characters. The 3 main characters are G. Marvin Platt, and the other 2 characters are Kadus, who's G's cousin. He's a wannabe mogul in the music business, and Kadus' his girlfriend Lele.
Great. Now,
and you said you are from New York. Does the show take place in New York, or?
No, the show actually takes place in Jersey City, and Chilltown is a slang word for Jersey City.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So what's your background in web series and filmmaking, animation?
Yeah, and in animation and art.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is my first experience doing animation. I'm primarily a writer, and I've focused just on television, and I've been really lucky, and I've sold a couple of shows to networks as well as to TV, production companies, but I was unlucky because I never got anything actually to go on the air or even go into production. So it was a very frustrating experience for me. Everything that I've done has been animation. Everything that I wrote was for animation, just because I really like cartoons and I liked adult cartoons. So about 5 years ago, I was kind of, I guess, at a crossroads to, in a certain degree. I had sold actually Chilltown to a network. I was in development for a really long time with the network. They never put it on the air. The rights reverted back to me. And I really believed in the show and I wanted to do it, and I couldn't afford to hire an animation company. So I taught myself how to animate. So this is my first experience animating.
That's really impressive.
Yeah, the animation, it's very, very good. What is your art background and experience and education?
I have no education. No, I have some education, but not at the School of Hard Knocks. No, not really. I used to draw a lot when I was in middle school, and I felt I was pretty good at it, but I never really pursued it. I went on to other things. In fact, when I sold Chilltown originally, I had done it as a self-published comic book, and I didn't even draw it myself because I felt that my art skills were just, they weren't polished enough. I didn't feel I had experience doing comic books and stuff like that. And so it wasn't starting from scratch because I feel like I had some kind of innate ability to draw, but I literally spent a year kind of reteaching myself how to draw by just practicing with books. Like I bought a couple of books that had Looney Tunes characters and things like that, and just kind of reteaching myself how to draw.
Oh, that's really fantastic. I can't draw a stick person, so I always admire those who can draw, because it always seemed like such a great skill. Like that would be so wonderful just to be able to draw something, and no, it's not in the cards.
You know what I found? I found that a lot of it is like a trick of your eye. If you have to kind of train your eye to look at things differently. Like, for example, before I started doing this, I used to marvel at people who drew things that had really in-depth shadows and things like that. And when I did Chilltown, when I was doing the background art, I realized I had to do a lot of shadows. And all I did was I just kind of started looking at things and just forcing myself to see the shadows, because normally, like if you were to look at a wall, you wouldn't normally notice the shadows unless they were incredibly pronounced. But if you focus on just looking at the shadows, then you see shadows. You just notice the light, because I guess like your brain doesn't focus on that because there's just too much information to take in with everything. And once you just kind of look at it as reality, all you have to do is copy it.
She makes it sound so easy.
So
I think that's
we're becoming animators.
Bless your heart. You're like, oh, they can do it. No, they really can't.
It sounds deep too. It's like see the shadows.
Well, I also had help in that. When I did the comic book, I worked with a guy who was a really, really wonderful artist named Chuck Frazier, and he's done a lot of stuff for Marvel and DC. He was just really, very, very experienced and very skilled. And even though I created the characters and, I knew the way I wanted them to look, and I worked with him back and forth a million times to get what I wanted, he drew them for when we did the comic book. So he did turnaround sheets. And in animation, turnaround sheets are the sheets that animators and cartoonists use to show the different positions that characters are in. So for example, you'll have a character facing forward, facing a profile look, a 3/4 look, the back, and that way you kind of know, three-dimensionally what a character looks like. And so I had those already. So I had something to start with. And plus, when I had my deal with Chilltown, part of what happened when when I was doing all of this was, when I say doing all of this, I mean having my deal and being in development and everything. They flew me out to 1 million production companies. And in those meetings, a couple of times production companies started putting together art. So again, I had mainly what they did was turnaround sheets. So I had all of that stuff. So it was kind of something to work with. I changed them, but it was something to work with.
Now, what was the genesis of Chilltown? What did it pop in your head one day? Was it a long time coming? What made you decide to even create this story?
Well, I knew that I wanted to do. The way it started was I wanted to do a CD-ROM. Interestingly enough, I wanted to do a game, and I wanted to do an immersive game, and I kind of toyed around with the idea. I grew up in the Bronx. I'm a hip hop head. I love hip hop. I grew up in and around hip hop culture. So it was the first thing that I thought of, just because I really love hip hop music and I love graffiti and I love all of that. And I love cartoons. So it just seemed like a natural kind of mix for me. Nothing ever really took off with that idea doing it. One thing led to another, and it became a comic book, and I ended up selling it. And that's kind of how it took off.
Now, when you animate the show, like how long does it take to do one episode?
Billions of years.
It probably feels like it, yeah, with all the details.
Well, it's the way you do animation, or the way I did animation, was I did an entire season at one time. So it's hard to kind of say exactly how long it takes to do one particular episode, because what I did was I initially drew all the characters, and then I drew all the background art, and I did them for everything for the entire season, not just for that one episode, because so much stuff was reused. And then I recorded all the voiceovers, and I did that for the entire season because, again, certain things were reused a little bit.
So how long did that take?
It took a year to create the characters and to do the background art. And part of that was, I think it would take me a lot shorter, but I did over 200 characters and 400 pieces of background art. And I did walk cycles. Walk cycles in animation are these things where you create like a little couple of second thing of characters walking it, because everybody's got like a little bit of a different personality when they walk, and so you want to have them all look a little bit different, and it's better to kind of pre-do that, so then you just have the walk cycle done and you can pop it in and kind of make it conform to the scene. I was teaching myself not only how to animate, but kind of how to draw in a way. I mean, I knew how to draw, but, kind of revisiting that. So it took me a lot longer than I think it would take if I started from scratch today.
Wow. Now, what kind of software do you use?
Well, I used Photoshop to do the background art. And the reason I use that, just for people who are like really techies and geeks and stuff like that, is because I really love shows like Aqua Teen Hunger Force, and I love Looney Tunes. And in Aqua Teen Hunger Force, as well as Looney Tunes, the backgrounds are always very complex versus very cartoony, and I wanted my backgrounds to look like that. I did the characters in Photoshop, Adobe Flash, and I composited everything, the background and the animation, and I animated everything in Adobe Flash, and then I put it into Adobe After Effects to kind of put voiceovers and do special effects, and I edited it and did all the music and put the music into Final Cut Pro. So it was a lot of software that I used.
Wow.
What was behind the decision of making it a web series versus maybe, I guess you said you pitched it to other networks already. I don't know if there is such a thing as making it and then giving the created product and trying to pitch it to network at that point or not. But
well, it was not a created product. I had pitched it to, I actually only pitched it to a couple of networks, and I sold it originally, and we never went into production. All they really had was a script from me. So when I left that deal, that's what I was left with, was a script and just, some turnaround sheets and my broken dreams.
This business is paved with those.
Exactly. I've heard that. I've lived it. And so essentially the reason I decided to do a web series was because I saw what was going on with the internet. And it was really, I felt that at least I would be able to do my thing. I didn't want to I felt like I was just going to be going around in circles, shopping and pitching and shopping and pitching. And, even though I was way luckier than most people, to have sold a few things, it's very, very tough to do that. And it's very, very tough to get something on the air. And I felt, well, at least this way I can put it on the internet, and if people see it, I can probably resell it, or I might be able to resell it.
Plus, your brainchild will finally be out there for someone to actually see.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Is that the long-term plan for Chilltown then? Perhaps, is it to make tons of money off ads? Is it to sell DVDs? Is it to maybe now that it's out, get someone's attention like at a network or studio?
Or continue with more seasons?
Mm-hmm.
Well, my plan is I don't know. I don't think, I don't know. I think there are very few people make a lot of money from ads.
Yeah.
That's not, I don't think that's like a realistic thing. I mean, you never know, but I don't think that's too realistic. My plans for Chilltown, or my hopes for Chilltown, are that I can resell it as a series down the line. I'm hoping that I can, either through crowdsourcing or, whatever, through an online network or whatever, get the funding to do season 2, because I can't do season 2 by myself. I mean, I can physically, but it would take too long. There'd just be too long of a period between season 1 and season 2. I think the only way that I can really do it is to have a team and have a budget so I can actually hire people, so it can be done, like, let's say, in a year.
Now, am I correct in you did some of the voices for
I did.
the show?
I did.
And so which ones did you do?
I do Lele, and I did about 25 voices altogether.
Oh my gosh.
I did the only main character I did was Lele, and the rest of them are just small little characters. I do almost all of the female voices on the show, except for the ones that are obviously done by a male, like Victor Cruz, who's an incredible actor and a great comedian, did a couple of the female voices, and he did in episode 3 he did I know it was episode 2. He did, for lack of a better word, a skeezer dwarf named Cindy, and it's so unexpected because his voice is so gravelly. It's so unexpected to hear a guy doing a female voice. It's great, and he did a few of them, but almost all the rest of the female voices I did. And I did 3 series. I have another series which I haven't even released yet, which I'm hoping to release at the end of the year or in January of 2014, and that series I did the 25 voices that includes for that series as well.
Now, was doing different voices something that you found you had a knack for growing up? I mean, did you torment your parents and your siblings with lots of different voices? And
no, I think I just have an ear for it, and I always could. I have a pretty good ear. I can't imitate everybody's voice, but I'm pretty good at doing that. And also, whenever I write, I talk all the lines of dialogue, and so because I guess I have to hear the way it sounds.
That's a very good idea, by the way.
Well, I don't do it on purpose. I just kind of do it. So it's kind of bizarre. Luckily, I work at home. I don't work in Starbucks. Otherwise, they cart me off to a mental institution.
Yeah.
But so it makes it a lot easier because I really know what I want them to sound like. So.
Well, they all have unique speech patterns and you get real nice, crisp dialogue exchanges.
Yeah.
So.
And now, how did you find your other voice artists?
I was lucky, and some of them for Chilltown I'd worked with before. A few of them, like Richie Bulldog, who does Plaid, who's just an incredible comedian, an incredible stand-up comedian, and Gil T, who plays Lightning Rob and plays Carly Carl, and Dante Nero, who plays Marv. I worked with them before. They did a pilot for me, a pilot that sadly wasn't picked up. Yet another pilot that wasn't picked up. And I just loved working with all of them. And in fact, I had, when I did Chilltown, I had them in mind immediately. When I was writing, I had their voices in mind when I was doing it. And I just hoped that they would do it. And luckily, they liked working with me as well. So they agreed. And Will Savintz, who's another incredible comedian, he's on Chappelle's show, and he's working right now opening for the Wayans brothers. He's been at it for a very long time and very talented guy. I found him back in MySpace days because this goes back 5 years ago when I reached out to him, and I knew who he was. I heard his voice, and I have to use this guy. And I wrote to him. I just cold emailed him on MySpace, and I said, Will, I love your voice. I'm doing a cartoon series. I don't have that much budget, but please, will you do my cartoon series? And he said, I love your art. I'll do it.
Oh, great.
So it was great. And it was a wonderful experience working with every single one of them. It was a weird kind of thing recording the voices because I think a lot of animated shows record people together, and I didn't have that set up because people just came to my apartment. So I recorded everybody individually, and I recorded an entire season in one day. So it took everybody typically about 2 or 3 hours to record the entire season, and then I had to splice everything together. So it was a really, really tough job.
Yeah, very time consuming.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned all these comedians working with you, and obviously this is a comic show.
Right.
Can you explain to our listeners? Can you try to describe the humor they can expect when they tune in and watch Chilltown?
Sure. It's kind of like it's based on who my influences are, which are Richard Pryor, Patrice O'Neill, Dave Chappelle. It's very edgy. It's raw. I feel it's smart. It's not that broad in a way. Like Chris Rock is another person who's a big influence for me, and things that kind of make you think a little bit. So that's the kind of humor. There's a lot of cursing.
No, you can't do that on the internet.
I know. I'm shocked. There's cursing
shocking.
going on in this establishment.
What's going to become of the internet now that we allow these sorts of things to happen?
I kind of felt once I looked at Jenna Marbles, who I love her show, by the way, and once I looked at Jenna Marbles and I realized, okay, Jenna Marbles' audience are like 10 and 11-year-old girls, and she curses throughout her entire show. I figure, okay, I'm going to be okay.
Well, I mean, if you grew up like we did, I could watch shows that had cussing when I was growing up, but I sure knew better than to try doing it myself.
Right. Right.
They can do it because they're on TV.
Right. Right.
It's a big difference. Now, can you explain the guy in the box?
Yeah, okay. The pimp head. The pimp head in the box. The pimp in a box. Basically, that's Lightning Rob. Lightning Rob is a pimp. He's a living decapitated pimp head. I decided to have him be decapitated because I just always thought that was funny. Just having talking decapitated characters, which it's been done a bit, and yeah, and on in the show In Living Color, they had a bit called Head Detective, which was just like a head, and so I really like that. And I also felt that a lot of times in hip hop culture or in rap culture, there's a big focus on pimps, and I thought that a lot of pimp culture is, aside from the obvious that it's horrible and exploitative and criminal and all of that kind of stuff, it's also really pretty crazy and goofy in many ways. It's pretty preposterous. So I decided to create a parody of a pimp. And so this character, Lightning Rob, he's a parody of a pimp. He's very angst-ridden. He has panic attacks. He's very self-involved, and he's decapitated. And the only reason I put him in a box is because I was just trying to figure out how would the characters carry him, and if it would be too hard for me to animate them literally just carrying the head around. It would be just really disgusting. So I put him in a box so it'd be easier for them just to carry. And I never even animated them really. I have only one character carrying the box, but it's a little easier, I think, to have them, just carrying the box around.
Yeah.
And so that's who that character is. And I had him have tiny little thalidomide hands because in pimp culture there's also a thing which also you see a lot in rap videos, and you see when you watch this kind of stuff. There's a thing called a chalice cup, and pimps have a chalice, and it's this big ornate cup that sometimes it says pimp and things like that on it, and they carry a cup, I guess like perpetually toasting themselves. And so I wanted him to have the chalice cup because I wanted him to be able to beat people on, with the chalice cup. And so
I need to have one of those.
No.
He will be returning, by the way. I have a Halloween episode, which of course is not going to be launching in October. It will be launching in a couple of months, and it is called The Return of Lightning Rob. He'll be back.
So Lightning Rob fans, he will be back for Halloween special.
Yes, he will. And if I do a season 2, he will be back as well because a lot of people like him.
Well, that's not a character you see every day.
Now I'm curious. Comedians, at least the comedians I've worked with in the past, sometimes like to try to improv a little bit.
Yes.
And I know they couldn't improv a whole lot because they're not with each other. But right. I'm curious if any of them, when they recorded their voices, tried to tweak a little bit, and maybe you kept some of that.
I did. There was very, very little of it. I'd say 99% of it was on script, and there was none of that, no ad-libbing. But there were a couple of instances where there was ad-libbing. I mean, aside from inflection and things like that, which was great. One of them was, I purposely set it up for an ad-lib. Richie Bulldog, there's a character called Scott Storch, which is based on the real Scott Storch. Scott Storch, if listeners don't know, is a person who is an enormously, enormously famous producer in hip-hop a long time ago, meaning 4 years ago. And he made a lot of hit records. He reached a level where he made millions and millions and millions of dollars and had yachts and had ornate mansions and the whole thing. And he lost most of that. And he was kind of like a preposterous type of character in a lot of ways. And I decided to make him into a wah-wah pedal because a lot of Chilltown is kind of surreal. And I guess I was thinking in Charlie Brown that wah, 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 somebody who just always
how
talks.
all the adults sound like that, yeah.
Right. And so I wanted him to kind of be like that, although he doesn't quite sound like that. So I have him working because his career has just fallen off so much. He's working doing a sex advice show at a pirate radio station. And and so there's part of this scene, which is, in one of the episodes, he has he's on the air and he says, well, I was going to play my latest record, but I couldn't bring the tracks down here for legal reasons. So I'll hum a few bars for you. and so I just said to Richie Bulldog, just do whatever you want. And I just let him record for I don't know, it had to have been 15 minutes and tears were rolling down my eye. It was so funny because he was like, wah, 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 wah. It was so funny. It was really, really funny. And he just completely ad-libbed that entire thing. It was wonderful. And another ad-lib part was Will Savint's, where there's in episodes, actually a number of episodes, but the character is introduced in episode 4, the character of LaRob. LaRob is this horrible, horrible psycho, like the worst boss you'd ever want. And he's like a mogul, and he runs a record label called Massive Death Records. And I knew that I wanted him just to be really over the top and crazy. And Will Savintz actually came up with the idea of having LaRob spell out his name all the time and try to spell things. So he always says, it's LaRob, L-E-R-O-B, LaRob. And I just loved that. I thought it was really, really funny. And so I kept it and ended up having Will Savintz actually in certain things, because LaRob comes for almost all the rest of the episodes for season 1, and having LaRob spell out other words as well.
I think it'd be really fun for the audience if maybe you could perhaps do a few of the voices.
Okay.
You're doing a little bit of the infliction there whenever you're talking about the other characters, but some of the female voices that you do would be kind of fun.
Okay. Hey, this is Lele. This is Lele's voice. I do her show every single week. Lele has her own show now. It's called Lele's Ratchet Advice Show, and that's Lele. Let's see. Another voice is somebody who called in is Scott Storch's ex-girlfriend. Hello, Scott. Okay, first he gets me pregnant. Then he beats the out of me with a can of Febreze. I didn't want to curse, by the way, on your show.
Thank you.
Then he will return my calls or text. He owes me like $400,000 and 59 cents. I mean, and that character, by the way, you don't even see her. She's a caller on the radio. That character is based on somebody I saw who I don't even know. I saw in a candy store who said one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my life. I walked into this candy store and there's this woman there, and she was Dominican, and she was with her son who looked like he was about 2 years old, and he was crying and whining because he was a little kid. And she looked at him and she said, "Why are you so desperate?" and I don't know. It was just
like the 2-year-old's going to be able to answer honestly.
Right?
Yeah.
Why are you so desperate? And so it was like the greatest rhetorical kind of question, almost rhetorical question I've ever heard. And so I just always remembered her voice, and I always wanted to do her voice as a character, even though I don't know her.
Unnamed woman in candy store.
Right. Became Scott Storch's ex-girlfriend who's trying to get child support. Who unbelievably, I wrote that, by the way, and this year it was revealed that he actually is battling child support because he's not paying child support. So unbelievably, I wrote it and it became true.
Wow.
Sadly for Scott Storch, the real Scott Storch.
Well, for other people out there that might be wanting to do a web series, or try to go into animation, do you have any kind of do's or don'ts that you learned along the way? Perhaps mistakes you made it harder for you on doing animation, or perhaps lessons you learned on trying to distribute or promote your web series?
Oh, I could spend at least 5 hours telling you there was at least minimum.
Maybe a little more condensed than 5 hours.
Okay.
Just a couple of things.
Exactly. Okay. First of all, for distribution, the biggest mistake I think that I made was I wasn't really involved with social media before I started, mainly because I was so busy animating. It took all of my time, just to kind of create the show. And if I had to do it all over again, I would have started getting involved with social media at least a year before and developing relationships with people and building a community and building up friends and stuff and, just becoming immersed in that, because that way you have a platform for your show to jump off into. You have people who are really waiting for it. I had 80 people who, I would update my Facebook page once every 8 months. And so I essentially had nobody waiting for my show whatsoever. So that was an enormously big mistake. With animation, I can't even tell. I know I've made mistakes and I don't even know what they are because
You're still figuring out their mistakes at this point.
I'm still trying to figure out what they are. And so, I think in a way I thought it out pretty well, with the animation. But the tips that I could give people for animation are if you want to do it, you have to really, really, really love doing it because it's an enormous time commitment. And for me, I ended up loving doing it. It was an incredibly gratifying experience, but it takes a really long time to do. So it's not like you can just take a camera and just get a bunch of people together and record something. It takes an enormous investment. So you have to really be willing to, allocate a long time. If you want to have something that looks good, you can do something that looks, that's not very good, and that you can probably pop that off, in a short amount of time. But if you want to have something that looks good, you're going to have to invest a lot of time.
I think those are some really good tips.
Yeah.
What do you think, now that you're kind of immersed yourself in this web television community, what do you think the future of web series television is for independent web series creators like yourself?
Oh, gee, I don't know. It's hard to say because things are changing so quickly. I mean, it's incredibly thrilling to be a part of the community because in general, everybody is so cool and they're great. But as an indie person, it's very challenging because the only shows that get enormous views are shows that are with networks. And those shows tend to be much bigger shows that either have, you can hear, I don't know if you can hear sirens in the background. You can say, yes, I am from New York City.
We believe you now. We weren't sure before.
Yeah, now we get it.
That's not a sound effect, and that's on my block. And so, at any rate, I think that shows that really get enormous views tend to have celebrities, tend to be with big networks, or tend to be those kind of shows where people are just talking into a camera. Those like real YouTube shows. So it's very, very challenging for people like me, who's just an indie producer. It's incredibly challenging. I couldn't begin to tell you what the future holds. I hope that there are more networks that pop up that cater specifically to us, that can help generate views, because I know there's an audience out there. There's no question about it. It's just, it's hard to get people to realize that when you're competing with major celebrities and major money.
Yeah, the hard part is the good thing is that the internet is basically infinite, but the bad news is it's basically infinite.
Right.
So the chances of someone stumbling upon your site, gets smaller and smaller.
Exactly. In fact, I just started a blog a few weeks ago called Adventures of a Web Series Newbie, where it's kind of like rants and stories and stuff about, my experiences, and it's not a how-to. It's, at best it's a how not to.
Hey kids, don't try this at home.
Exactly. But I talk about, different things, like when I go down to, YouTube, and experiences I've had with other creators, as well as, stories of meeting people and opportunities that happen or, slip away and things like that.
Well, what do you have coming up? What do you have coming up Chilltown-wise? Anything
Shameless
else?
plug time.
Yes.
Let us know.
Okay, shameless plug time. I have coming up on Tuesday, I have a brand new Lele show. I release a new Lele's Ratchet Advice show every 2 weeks on a Tuesday, so a brand new one is coming up. And on the 3rd, I have a brand new Chilltown coming out, which is episode 6. So everybody, please watch it. In the fall, I'm relaunching Chilltown, and it's kind of top secret a bit what I'm doing, but there are a bunch of celebrities that are going to be involved, and it's going to be a pretty big thing, hopefully. If not, I'll come here and I'll be crying my eyes out. And so those are the main things that are going on. I also have a couple of collaborations that are going on that, if you go to my website, which is chilltowntv.com, or you go to my blog, which is Chilltown TV at WordPress, I'm definitely going to be talking about that. And in the next month or so, I'll be doing a number of collaborations, which should be fun. And everybody come in. Everything is for me is Chilltown TV. My website is Chilltown TV. My YouTube channel, which please go to the YouTube channel and please subscribe. And if you like the videos, please like them. And if you don't like them, please don't click don't like. Just mutter about me under your breath and say, "Oh God."
Yes, you gotta love those dislikes and comment sections.
All right. I've been really lucky that I haven't really gotten any negative comments. I've been really lucky about that. I've only had one negative comment since I started this, which is unbelievable.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood. Yeah, I mean,
some troll's gonna listen to this and be like, "Oh, really? Well, we'll fix that."
Exactly. Exactly. I've been really lucky. But I guess that's part of what it is. I mean, not everybody's going to like what you do, so that's the way life is. But at any rate, all of my stuff is Chilltown TV. So if you go to YouTube, it's youtube.com/Chilltown TV. I'm on Twitter at Chilltown TV. I'm on Facebook at Chilltown TV. So please friend me, say you heard me talking on the show, say, I'd like to buy you a drink. Your story sounds really sad. Or sounds great.
But New York sounds scary, so I'm not going to.
New York sounds scary. I'll send you a bulletproof vest. So please, I comment back to every single person who writes to me. So, if you like this stuff and enjoy it, please write to me, and I'd be happy to hear from you. And please say you heard about me here.
Great.
That's great. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Ben Days, executive producer of 8 and 5, the web series, and you're listening to GenreTainment.
Well, thanks to Leesa for taking the time to chat with us, and we wish her luck on her series, and I can't get over how she taught herself that animation just to make her own show. That is really good.
Now let's get to our interview with the creative team behind the YouTube action series Armed Response.
1 Adam 12, do you copy?
1 Adam 12 copies. Go ahead.
Be advised, we have a report of a possible 417 at the Marine Terminal. A dock worker called in and said he thought he saw someone with a gun in a warehouse. Code 2, please proceed with caution.
1 Adam 12 copies. We're 10-8, en route now.
Copy and confirm.
Hello everyone, you're listening to GenreTainment. This is Marx.
And Julie, and today we have with us producer Thomas Bannister and director Justin Lutsky to tell us about their new action series Armed Response, which recently premiered on the YouTube channel Hard Coded. So, hi Thomas and Justin, and welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
Well, to start off, can you tell us what our audience can expect from Armed Response?
Yeah, so Armed Response is a new web series that we created that's a found footage project that drops the viewer right into the middle of a high-octane gunfight for about 20 minutes. It involves an SRT unit and involved in a tactical situation where they're going up against a drug cartel which they stumble upon at the Port of Long Beach. And our goal was to sort of recreate what it's like to be right in the middle of an intense firefight with bullets whizzing by, and to gain that sort of perspective of helmet cameras and security cameras and cameras right in the thick of that kind of a situation.
Great.
And Tom, you have, you were very inspired by the way that we consume media these days, and I think that was part of what this project was.
Absolutely. I mean, I think Justin mentioned storytelling earlier. If you think about how we now come to stories online, if you think about the Russian, the comet in Russia, or, any of the way that news breaks these days, we very much come to these stories from a kind of found footage, citizen journalism perspective. Like, we're right there in the moment of breaking news, often from multiple perspectives of kind of unassuming people who've been caught up in a situation. And that's really, a huge part of storytelling on the web is now merging entertainment and news. And, average people who get caught up in these events and film it, and then it kind of plays out online. So I think Justin and I were very much inspired by that, and in some ways very dark stories, like the tsunamis in Thailand or Japan, or perhaps more inspirational stuff like the comet in Russia. But we were kind of fascinated by how these stories unfold, and they're told from these citizen journalists and unassuming people, and we really wanted to take that filmmaking style and merge it with the action genre. So merge it with the 24s and the diehards and and that kind of action way of telling a story that we've seen over the last 20 years that Justin loves, and kind of try and merge those two styles. And I think Armed Response is our attempt at that. So on the one hand, we're trying to be realistic and emulate reality and do that. But on the other hand, we're trying to tell a Hollywood story and take people on a wild ride. So I think Armed Response comes out of those, trying to achieve those two aims and merge them together. We got to live our teenage fantasies of, producing, an action movie. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to make and to see people react to it.
It's fun to watch.
I bet all the actors are having a good time too. It's always fun to get to run around and cause destruction.
Yes.
apart from episode 3, which is a lot of that was shot at a sewage place, and it absolutely stank. Other than that, it was a lot of fun.
I'm sure the sewer was the highlight of everyone's experience.
A lot of complaints that day.
Now, it's 20 minutes of actual episode content. How long did it take to actually shoot all that 20 minutes?
4.5 days, basically. We shot all days in and around Long Beach, and it was a pretty ambitious schedule for sure. There's a lot to shoot. I think the script was 20 pages, and it's a lot. Action, always takes like 3 times as long to shoot. So we were constantly moving, constantly having to keep going, and no rest for 5 days straight, basically.
We knew going in that we had to shoot it before November. Otherwise, we wouldn't get the opportunity to shoot it again until March, because it needed that amount of daylight. It's all shot outside. So we knew that if we didn't get it done by the end of October, that it would be 6 months until we could get it done, which may have changed everything. So, and I think you see that in episode 1, like you see it, we're really fighting the sun in parts of that episode.
Now, as far as location goes, can you tell us where the locations were and how hard were they to get for this show?
We filmed at the Port of Long Beach, and I think that the location was a big factor in us being able to do this. Like, Justin and I looked at a lot of different ports, from San Diego to San Francisco and Santa Barbara. Like, we looked at filming all the way along the California coast, and we were kind of like, where the hell are we going to do this? And then we worked out with that terminal, and we became friends with a lot of longshoremen. I'm on a lot of emailing lists now with longshoremen, and they were absolutely awesome. Like, the guys who ran that terminal were just fantastic and allowed us access to the cranes and moved around the shipping containers and just became part of the filmmaking process.
That's great, because the location looked amazing, really.
Yeah,
the location and the set piece really was kind of like the centerpiece for everything that took place, and getting that locked in was key to everything else that fell into place after. And also, it's super important to get a location that's really excited about what you're doing and friendly to what you're trying to do, especially when you're trying to pull off, such a large type of a project where you're coming in with police officers and vehicles and guns and weapons and firing live ammunition. There's no getting around having the support of your location in that situation.
There's no sneaking in that instance, really.
Yeah, we knew that if we were filming like on a street, with what we wanted to do, like, we would probably be arrested. So we knew that we needed that kind of locked off location that was totally separate from the world, that was a totally controlled environment, and that's what that terminal became. You know, you can have guys running around in suicide bomb vests without it creating, like, panic.
I was going to say, the bomb vests and the guns do tend to make people nervous.
Just a little.
Justin and I actually had, like, an actual conversation about maybe taking the suicide vest down to South by Southwest, and I don't think either of us thought, like, how are we going to get it on the plane?
Yeah, you're going to get yourself a one-way ticket to Gitmo, I think.
Now, one of the selling points, one of the parts of the pitching of the show is who is one of the writers of the show. He wrote for 24 and wrote quite a bit for Star Wars, Clone Wars. So how did this whole project get involved? Did he bring the idea to all of you? Or do you know each other? You know, how did Armed Response come about?
We came up with the idea, and you know, I think Armed Response really initially came from phone calls really between Justin and I. Like, you know, we'd wanted to work on a project together, and we'd developed a few other ones, and it just, you know, talked a lot, and Justin had come to some of our SXM shoots, and Armed Response kind of came out of that dialogue between Justin and I. And we decided on the story and the plot, and then found the location, and then we went out in search of a writer, and we were very lucky to find Matt, who, you know, was exactly what we were looking for. I think Justin and I are both huge fans of 24 and that style of storytelling, and you know, we talked a lot about how can we do found footage but in a 24 style. You know, how can we try and cross that divide between 24 and found footage. So we purposefully went out looking for someone with that kind of experience, and we were very lucky that Matt agreed to do it and became invested in it as he did. And you know, and then from there we had the story, we had the port, we knew the kind of outline of the story and the characters, and it kind of developed from there. So I think Justin, Matt, and I did 3 walkthroughs of the port over about 3 months, and they were just kind of amazing. You know, we all got very sunburned, but they're just kind of amazing sessions of us just basically like wandering around a port, talking about a story and how we would bring out the elements and what we would do where, and then Matt went back and wrote it, you know, after those walkthroughs.
In a lot of ways, Matt, I mean, was really instrumental in reverse engineering the action to take place around this location, and in a lot of ways it was kind of like blocking a play almost, as opposed to writing a screenplay in the traditional sense. Because you're really having to write for the locations and the resources that you have at your disposal when you're working on a micro-budget project.
Mm-hmm. Now, so there are 4 episodes. Are there going to be any more episodes? Is this sort of like your pilot testing out the waters, or do you have more episodes planned?
I think we'd love to do more. Personally, at least I kind of loved this process of making this show, and you know, it was an amazing project to work on, and so I'd love to do more. So yeah, I think we very much hope that, you know, either we do more of the story or or just the storytelling, like this style of production.
Like you said, it's a found footage show. Everything's POV type shots. Either they're helmet cams or security cameras. Mm-hmm. So how did you do those POV shots, especially the helmet cams? Were those done with cameras similar to the helmet cams that might actually be used? Or was that something more like standard film equipment, like GoPros, that are popular for shots like that?
Yeah, so that was something we questioned early on: is do we shoot this with actual helmet cams or reel cams? And we went with the reel cam approach. I mean, I come from a pretty traditional film narrative background, so my instinct is to always have bigger, better cameras and get the best image possible. Mm-hmm. And so at first we actually thought about using like an Alexa and rigging that to a camera operator's shoulder in such a way that it mimicked a helmet cam, but it just became too cumbersome to try that. So what we ended up doing was building, basically out of bicycle helmets, camera mounts for digital SLR cameras. We used Canon digital SLRs because we wanted to be able to change lenses, mm-hmm. and you can't switch lenses on GoPros or anything smaller than that. So the digital SLR was the biggest camera we could sort of practically mount on an actor's head and still allow them to move around without getting in the way.
Well, I'm kind of getting a little techie here, I guess, but I'm kind of curious with the DSLRs. You know, there's that rolling shutter effect that happens sometimes. Did you have any issues with that because they're moving around so much, or was it not a big issue at all?
That was a concern, but to be honest, we were jumping into this so fast we didn't have nearly enough time to do a proper camera test, so we kind of got lucky. that was definitely a concern of mine. At the time, I mean, the other alternative was GoPro, and the newest ones weren't out yet. Had the newest, I think the GoPro 3's been out, that probably would have been a strong contender for an alternative, because it would have been easier to shoot with. We probably could have had more of them at any given time.
You didn't have a chance to overthink it at all.
Exactly. It's like we didn't have the luxury of overthinking it, so we really just had to pull the trigger on what we knew would be okay. And honestly, a lot of those helmet cameras have that same issue. So if we were going for the realistic, image, a rolling shutter or kind of a wobbly image here and there in the thick of the action actually brings a little bit of authenticity to it.
I think our biggest issue on that shoot, and it's often an issue that I find in general, is like getting Video Village to work. And
yes,
it's amazing, we're in this technological age, but like just getting to be able to watch what you're shooting on Video Village sometimes, I wish Apple would like figure out how to do Video Village, because it's amazing how many shoots it never works. And on this one, because we were like literally following, if you think about episode 1, like they jump out of the SWAT van and they run into that building, like trying to follow that and like see it on a Video Village and actually see what you were filming was a total nightmare. So I think in that first day, Justin and I, was very frightening, because we were like trying to like figure like what are we shooting here? Like we couldn't even see some of that first day and what we were filming. So it was kind of a frightening, and like halfway through day number 2, I'd say we finally kind of figured out how to kind of get Video Village to work in that style where we could kind of like follow it, what we were actually filming.
Mm-hmm.
But it was quite frightening that first day to kind of jump into that style.
I bet so, because if you can't see it, their helmets could slide, and you could just get lost sky or ground and not know until later. It'd be very scary.
Yeah, no, there was a few points. I mean, the interesting thing about that first day in this style of filmmaking is the more characters you have, the longer it takes. So what we didn't know going in was that first day, when all of the SWAT team are still alive, is the biggest day, because like you have to film everyone's POV. Once they start dying, and you get into the episodes, it's much, much easier. So episode 4 in the marina is really just kind of 2 POVs, Kara and Morgan, and that's a lot easier than like filming 7 or 8 POVs, because you have to film everyone. You don't know what you're going to use or what you're not going to use. So that first day, I think, was a very tough day. We didn't quite know what we were getting ourselves into.
Yeah, but
we got through it.
You were wishing you killed more people off sooner, weren't you?
Did that motivate you to kill them off quicker?
Script change. Now you're dead.
Before I forget, Justin, I think I was looking you up on IMDb, and I saw a film, Bon Appetit, that you worked on, and I'm pretty sure I watched it years back at DragonCon and really enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah.
So and that's an action kind of film too. So
yeah, my thing has always been sort of mainstream action comedy, and Bon Appetit was my thesis film way back when from Chapman University.
Mm-hmm.
If you like Bon Appetit, you should check out The Action Hero's Guide to Saving Lives. We did that a couple of years ago with Patrick Warburton, and that is very much in the same vein of action and comedy, but I think a more accomplished piece of work. But I'm glad you were a fan of Bon Appetit.
Cool, I'll have to check that one out. So,
Bon Appetit is awesome.
And now, in a directing standpoint, was it difficult for you? Is there some unique challenges directing a POV type show besides Video Village? Was there any other challenges, like trying to get the performances to come through whenever it's being recorded that way?
Yeah, I mean, most definitely. This was a huge challenge. I mean, my initial interest is not to do found footage type stuff, so I went into this kind of with an open mind, trying to almost figured out as I went. But certainly you can't do basic things like when you need to see an actor's face, you can't just get a shot of their face. So planning when one actor looks at another actor, because we have to see something they say or we have to see a reaction on their face. I mean, it's a whole other element to like consider. A lot of times we're basically using the actors as moving tripods, and so I don't think we're making the best use out of them them as performers, and figuring out how to kind of work in shots where we actually see them was a challenge. Like in episode 4, even though technically there wouldn't be a camera there, we justified a backwards-looking camera from the point of view of the gun, looking back on Kara, the character of Kara. And so doing stuff like that was just almost became like essential, just to sort of see actor faces and performances at times. Yeah, I mean, all in all, it was a completely different filmmaking experience than doing something where you can set up any shot you need. You're now limited to very specific shots.
Almost every headcam shot that you see in the show is actually isn't the actors. It's done by the guy who played Sniper, Rains. So he essentially wore the headcam for everybody. I think that's right. Just no, am I kind of misremembering that?
No, that's right, because our original plan was to move this camera around from actor to actor, and we quickly learned that it was actually quite difficult to wear this helmet for any extended period of time. So we kind of got used to the idea of only our strongest guys and the guys who could endure the longest would just do it all for everybody, and that turned out to be Grant, who played the Sniper, and he was an amazing asset to have on the project, both in his tactical experience advising and then just also his ability to grunt through wearing this camera all day long.
Oh, wow.
But even like Ella, who's the girl, it's the female Homeland Security person, like Grant, that's literally Grant, like crouching down, running around. It wasn't actually Kara wearing that. But an interesting, if you think about that in terms of, business, an interesting element is that we could do this style of production with an A-list celebrity. We could make a 90-minute feature, and we'd probably only need them on set for 2 days to get those face shots. Like every other, maybe a few more days, but and then we need them in ADR. So it's a very interesting concept from a casting point of view that we could make an entire feature around a big celebrity, without necessarily blocking out a huge amount of their time.
That's a good idea.
That is a good idea. Yeah.
And a lot cheaper on your end, too.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of times with casting big celebrities, it's not that they don't want to do it. They often do, but it's just time. They've booked up for years and, they don't have any time, and they may love a project. But so with this style of filmmaking, we really could fit this into the big celeb's schedule.
With Armed Response, we did touch a little bit on procedure, and it seems very heavy in procedure. I mean, they're saying a lot of code. I don't know if code's the right word.
So how accurate is everything they're saying? How'd you go about researching that?
Well, the original intention was to try and be as authentic as possible, and we worked with Grant, again, who played the Sniper in the series, who has a lot of experience in his history working on tactical teams and working for various government agencies, and just a lot of experience in that world. So we drew off him a lot. But the reality is, when you're working micro-budget, a lot of what you're doing is dictated by the resources you have available to you and the time you have to shoot something. So, we strive to be as authentic as possible, but ultimately I think entertainment value trumped authenticity some of the time. And so there's kind of a blend of both. And the other reality is that we're working with the cast of actors, and we don't have the budget or the time to put them through, a 2-week boot camp in tactical training like they would on any major feature. So to get them comfortable and working with weapons and moving as a team, it's like they're doing the absolute best they can on the day of, as opposed to having that drilled into their brain for weeks at a time ahead of schedule. So it's kind of a mix between what's entertaining and what is authentic at the end of the day, I think.
I think, going off some of the comments that you see on YouTube on this, a lot of people are focused on that, is it real, is it not? And, you see a lot of comments oh, this would never happen. This would... I think that we never set out to make something that is absolutely real. This isn't Zero Dark 30. This is much more we wanted to do something entertaining. I and at least I thought of it as the A-Team, or one of those 80s cartoons in a way, where we were kind of trying to be entertaining and kind of take, 24. 24 is not real. But,
no, it's not real? I'm just kidding, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally improbable, obviously, that all of these things happen in the 24-hour period and the storylines, but we wanted that. We wanted the plot twists and all that. So we never, we have a bomb defusal scene. We never set out for this to be, found footage and sold people on the reality of it. We always wanted it to be found footage style, but like 24-esque kind of storytelling. So it's interesting for me, at least, to kind of read those comments online, because, you know, people are kind of like, oh, well, this, you know, there's guys like from the LAPD, you know, training department, like commenting online, oh, this isn't our procedure, we would never do this. And I think to a degree, like, we never tried to set out to make it.
Right, you never said it was a documentary.
Yeah, it's supposed to be entertaining. It's a fantasy in some ways, but shot in that real style, like trying to.
And the timeline that we were trying to squeeze into 20 minutes, I mean, when you're shooting something for the web, it just has to, you know, one twist after another, and things just have to come right, you know, stacked right on top of each other, and we don't have time to really linger and let things breathe as much as you would with, you know, a movie or a TV show. And so also dictated sort of how things escalated much faster than they would in real life, in which case something like this would probably take all day and all night and in some sort of a standoff where nothing happens until the very end.
Yeah. You know, that it's not real. I mean, if that was someone's actual day at work, everybody'd be dead in a week.
Right.
If nothing else, from sheer exhaustion.
And that, I think, just from producing for the web and being a web producer, you know, which is very much my background. Like now when I watch feature movies, like I find it hard to concentrate sometimes. Like it's that kind of quick turnaround of plot points and story ideas that, you know, you have on the web is much, much slower in feature films. So we were kind of tapping into that, I think, a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I know you produced a number of web series, and one of them is Easy to Assemble, which is very popular, sponsored by IKEA. And a common question I hear from web series creators, because we interview a lot of them over time, they're always asking about, how do they get a sponsor, and of course your Easy to Assemble is one of the examples people mention. Do you have any tips for them on how they could possibly get a sponsor like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I question whether that model is totally current in the present time. I think it's a great model, and SXM as a company, we not just with IKEA but with Samsung, over the last 3 years we've done a hell of a lot of productions for Samsung and different shows which they've sponsored and commercials and that kind of stuff. And it's fantastic if you can get it to work and you like the brand that you're working with, but it's incredibly hard to get a brand to back your ideas. And I think currently with brands, branded entertainment for consumer products like phones and like furniture, like they're not as interested in branded entertainment in 2013. That could very much switch back in 2014, but I think marketing budgets in 2013 are very much focused on social media. So if I was to give advice to a web series creator in 2013, I would say probably brands at the moment are not the way to go. I just don't think that they're interested in spending money in this space. I think that it's a fantastic way for them to spend money, but I think that at the moment they're trying to figure out how to maximize their Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts, doing all of that stuff. So I think if I was a web series creator, I would, and you see that with what SXM's doing at the moment, like this Break project and a Vivo series we're doing, and we're very much focused on doing original entertainment, focusing on YouTube channels and networks and people who are spending money online. I think that there's less money without brands at the moment, but there's a little bit more control. Response could never be made with a brand. No brand would ever, like a video game or a movie might sponsor it, as they ended up doing. But IKEA would never sponsor Response. It's just too violent.
You see, like AT&T trying to put up things on the connexes. And
I can see you're getting shot. And let's jump behind this couch from IKEA. They can handle these bullets.
Right. I mean, I think that they should, and Justin's project, Action Heroes Guide, is to me is like an amazing branded entertainment project in the making. But it's getting brands to sign off on something where people are getting shot, even if it's in a comic way, is very hard. I think overall in 2013, getting brands to fund projects is a tough sell. this year. That may change back, but if I was a web series creator, or I am a web series creator, but if I was like advising a web series creator, I'd say don't go after brands, go after like some of these channels and networks and try and sell your idea there.
I think it's interesting how it was a more workable model, and then here we are almost done with the third month of 2013, but we're acknowledging that it could completely change in just a few months. That's how fast these things change.
And that's the thing. Like SXM's a digital studio, and like we have to reinvent our business model every 6 months. So if you look at our shows, 2008 we did Easy to Assemble. Like through 2011 we were working with Samsung, and we were very much brand focused. And I think the whole model has shifted. And in 2012 you saw Google come in and invest a lot of money on YouTube channels, and at that point the model shifted to original productions for the web. So you saw these big YouTube people suddenly become hot. So that's like people like Freddie Wong or Ray Williams Johnson, and the companies that kind of rep them, like Maker Studios or Full Screen, and that's the kind of hot model of the moment. But now the kind of Google investment is kind of a little bit up in the air. So like we're in an interesting stage at the moment, a kind of transitional stage where it's incredibly creative, but nobody's quite sure where the business model is without brands and without Google. Like where's the business model?
Yeah.
But
yeah, I've heard a lot of it.
And that was for me a big thing about South by Southwest was it was incredibly creative to be there, and there were so many people there who were doing crazy stuff on the web. Like everyone, like a lot of people, like I've given up trying to figure out, the business model. Like I just do it because I love it, and that, at least for me, was our response. Like we, to me, like being on set with Justin and that creative process at 6 a.m. in a port trying to make this thing happen was the reward in of itself. And hopefully we'll get some stuff coming off it. But I think a lot of web series creators are at the same point at the moment where we're doing it because, we kind of passionately believe in it, and, the business model keeps shifting on us.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, it does, for sure. I know we hear a lot of frustration by web series creators sometimes as they're trying to figure it out. Just as you start to figure it out, it all changes.
Yeah.
But as soon as it gets figured out, as soon as like you can package it up and figure it out, like it will lose, big companies will get involved and it will become structured just like television, and there'll be a set way of doing it. So at the moment there's huge problems with it, but at the same time there's huge creative flexibility with it. But the moment that it gets figured out and there's a set way of doing it, that will change. And, it'll be like TV where there's this, you go in and pitch a TV show, there's this very set of rules and way of doing it, that's been done for like 30 years or so. Yeah. So that to me is what I love about the web, is you can totally reinvent it, which is a little bit what we tried to do with On Response. This is, trying to do something totally new. At least we thought it was, from our perspective, it was new. Mm-hmm. But you can't really. It's hard to do that in TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a real freedom to it, since there's
right.
nothing really set yet, and we always compare it to like a new frontier or the Wild West, where it's just kind of anything goes at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about something funny. You only got 4 or 5 days to shoot this. You're moving fast. Was there any kind of funny moments on set?
Yeah, the whole time we were shooting, I think some of the or actually before we started shooting, some of the cast thought they were involved with a comedy, which I found hysterical. And so the whole time we were shooting all these very dramatic situations, at moments we looked at each other and go, see how easily this could be a comedy? So we're hoping to make the comedy or the musical version next. A lot of the cast didn't realize they were actually going to be firing live weapons, and so I think Camille has a very funny video of her cell phone waiting in the dressing room on the first day when we were doing a weapons test fire, and she just realized that she was actually going to be firing these weapons for real, and had a freak out moment.
Oh, wow.
So all sorts of fun realizations, like how intense the action and being involved was going to be. Obviously dealing with elements like the horrific stench at the at the sewer pipes we were shooting at, and there were awesome moments like when me and Tom and Jeff Dolan, the cinematographer, and our sniper were on top of this giant crane in the middle of Long Beach, and we're like, wow, we're actually up here firing sniper rifles off of this crane in Long Beach. Just cool moments like that where it was actually happening, for sure.
There was a moment, that explosion at the end of episode 3 where the bomb vest goes off. Like we had only one take to do that because we had to get kind of rig that explosion, and we were losing time. So we were like, we have one moment to do this, and we blocked it a ton of times, and then we filmed it, and I think that was the most elating moment for me, like when we did it and it worked, and we were like, all right, done.
I was wondering how much of it was actual special effects or how much it was done post and visual effects. So a lot of it was actual special effects, huh?
Yeah, a lot of it was as practical as possible, which is always something I think looks better when you try and shoot as much practically as you can and then augment with visual effects. Mm-hmm. So most all the gunfire was all real, and then we augmented with some muzzle flash here and there in post, and then a lot of the blood that's in the show is CG, because it's harder to do squibs and more expensive to do that. But all the blanks were live fire, and all of the any explosion or anything like that had some sort of practical element to it that we may have enhanced with some visual effects after the fact.
I'm thinking if I were acting in it, my freak out moment would be more about the sewer than the actual guns. Are you serious?
I still have this mental image in my head from that tunnel shoot as like our first AD like screaming at people, and then like a huge spider coming down on a strand from the ceiling and landing on his shoulder, and him not noticing, and then like a grip walking by and saying, "Dude, there's a massive spider on your shoulder."
There were spiders seriously the size of baseballs walking around the ceiling. It was.
See, nature has a way of humbling you. You can be, at the top of the food chain yelling orders, but nature will have a way of putting you in your place.
Yeah, nature will bring you down a notch.
That's an interesting thing being a Brit in California, because I come from a place where, there's nothing really that can kill you in England. So like long ago we there's like wild boars and bears and stuff became extinct in England, and there's no poisonous spiders or snakes. Like in California, you're like, actually that spider might be a black widow, or that, there's a whole level of things here, like mountain lions or flash floods or earthquakes that can kill you.
Yeah, we got those here too.
Yeah. But the worst thing that you can do in England is literally get wet from the rain.
I suppose you could, catch a nasty cold and.
Yeah, you couldn't even. It doesn't get cold enough to freeze to death. Like if you sat outside all night, you'd be fine.
Be miserable, and that would be it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. New plan. We're moving to England.
Yes. Well, the owner of SciFiPulse.net lives in England.
Yeah.
So he's got it right.
We'll just go camp at his. We'll just go hang out at his place.
Well, we should do an armed response England. I don't know.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Would they have an armed response in England?
Well, I think they do now.
Okay, yeah.
Terrorism and such, they probably do. I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think you'd get as many weapons there. It'd have to be some kind of armed response, like knife style of physical combat.
I just remember watching Torchwood, and Gwen was like, I don't know how to use a gun. And he's like, you need to learn.
Alrighty. Well, before we wrap up, I am curious. We touched on it a little bit already, but since both of you are in the web sphere, especially Tom, I'm curious what you think the future of web series is for independent creators. Do you feel that it's going to become very challenging to become an independent web series creator and over time because of Hollywood coming in, or you think there's still some really great opportunities there?
I think at the moment it's very egalitarian. A lot of people have audiences, and it's great or small, but that's one great thing about not having a business model, is that it means that anybody can kind of do it and can have their say. So I think once as you get the big hits online and the big shows, it'll become very much like the rest of the entertainment world, which is where you have a few people who are the big celebrities, big stars, and that's what everyone talks about. But online at the moment, it's a lot of people, great and small, doing their own thing, and maybe they're on YouTube and they have like 100,000 subscribers, and they're living off that. But that once we get the big hits in the online world, it's going to change, and it'll become much more focused on the big stars, and it'll become more like the entertainment world where a few people take all of the money, as it is in television and film. There's good points and bad points to that.
Mm-hmm.
The good point is that you'll get more money and the budgets will go up and that kind of stuff. But the bad point is that it'll become concentrated in a few hands. I think it's the case with entertainment. Like in the entertainment business, there's a few winners who take home the prizes, and I think we'll see that on the web. Like at the moment, it's everybody has a chance to kind of say their thing and do their thing, and gradually we'll get this big success stories, and those people will take over. Whoever that is, it'll be the least expected thing.
Mm-hmm. Now, Justin, I don't know if you've done that many web series. I know you've done a lot of films. Is this your first web series?
No, yeah, I haven't done many web series. The first web series I was pretty heavily involved in was last year. I was a second unit director for a friend of mine's web series called Drone, which was on Yum Yum F, mm-hmm. and that was a whole lot of fun as well. But really the last year, I've been kind of delving into web series because it's an interesting outlet for filmmakers who are not getting a chance to direct TV shows and features, which is really what my long-term goals are. It's a great space to work in as a sort of stepping stone to lead up to that, and it's almost becoming that too. I mean, the web series, the ones that I really enjoy and watch are the sort of more high quality, the sort of major filmmaker attached type projects like the Halos and the H+ and stuff like that. So it's kind of a new thing, although I've been developing and meeting with companies about web series for years, trying to pitch ideas and all that kind of stuff. Really only been involved in production in them with Drone and then Armed Response in the last year or so.
And how's it differ for you, like when you approach it? You just wrap it all up like a feature film? It's like a 20-minute feature?
I think storytelling is storytelling, whether you're doing it for television or feature or web. I think it's all about telling great stories and finding characters that people want to come back and see time and time again. So, I mean, that's how I would approach any project. And I think that is the challenge with a web series in a much more compressed time format, trying to get as much story and character in there as possible while still delivering something that is appropriate for the sort of online viewing attention. So that's a challenge of web series most of the time, I think.
Okay, so now we're to the part where we call our shameless plug time, where you all can let our listeners know where to find Armed Response, and also any other projects that you might have that are already out or that are coming out that are in the works. So
go right ahead.
Go ahead.
You want to start, Tom, or should I think of a few?
Yeah, I think Armed Response is findable on YouTube. I'd say that's the best way to just go on YouTube and type in Armed Response and you'll find it.
Over on Hard Coded, right? That's the channel.
Yeah, Hard Coded is Break's kind of new action channel, which Armed Response is on. So yeah, search Hard Coded or Armed Response.
My personal endeavors right now are trying to get a few independent features going. One in particular, I'm trying to do an indie feature with Patrick Warburton. So hopefully that'll be something to look out for in the very near future.
Great.
I'd say anyone who enjoys Armed Response should go and search down Action Hero's Guide to Saving Lives, which is Justin's short film with Patrick Warburton, because it's just an amazing short film. There's very few short films out there like it.
Yeah, I'm very curious about it. I mean, I liked Bon Appetit, so I'm assuming I'm going to like it.
Yeah.
The title's got me already, so that sounds good.
It's a catchy title.
It is.
Go to our website, which is actionheroesguide.com, and then you can find that and a lot of my other spec commercial work and other short films at epicimageentertainment.com as well. And then we've been talking with Matt about ways to expand Armed Response into all sorts of different possible feature-length ideas or more episodic ideas, and so excited to see what we can put together in terms of the future of Armed Response as well, for sure.
All right, well, it's been great speaking with you guys.
Thanks very much, guys, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you all for talking.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Hi, I'm John Rogers. I created the show Leverage and wrote Transformers, and you're listening to GenreTainment.
Well, thank you to Tom and Justin for taking the time to speak with us, and we wish them luck with Armed Response and other future projects.
So that's it for today's GenreTainment. Check back next week with all new guests from our favorite films, TV shows, novels, and web series.
Now, coming up in just a couple of days, we have more web series coverage, this time with the creative minds behind the new science fiction YouTube channel Forge Apollo. Oh, and also a bonus interview with the stars of the new sci-fi series Defiance. And we just watched the pilot and we're kind of hooked, so please don't miss the fun interviews.
And don't forget, you can always check out all of our past episodes of GenreTainment in the archives at sci-fi-pulse-radio.com. You can also check out the other great shows on this channel like SFP Now, The Roundtable, and more. And please share, like, and comment on our episodes to show us you want more episodes. A big thanks from us to all of you out there for listening to us.
Until next time.